Alright, let's be real. This custom Mad Max Orc army isn't official until I build my first vehicle. But can we really make more badass Warhammer vehicles with cheap model kits? So I created a kit-bashed war boy for my Mad Axe, Max Bax, Orc Bork, Wark army. So I created a kit bash war boy for my Mad Max Orc army in a recent video. But this thing really isn't going to be legit until I get the vehicles right. And sure, orcs in general, and especially their vehicles, are already loosely based around a post-apocalyptic scavenged aesthetic. But those vehicles are mostly just frames and scrap, whereas historically the vehicles in Mad Max are all recognizable as real-world cars. So my plan is to take the key parts of the Games Workshop kits and actually infuse them with all the real-world car parts from a model kit. But then we have the question of what scale model kits are Warhammer? I don't know. So to answer that question, I did the thing that none of us should do. I went to Reddit, and they all said that 1/48 kits are slightly smaller than Warhammer, but they're close enough. So here's a 1/48 car frame, and here's an orc. Don't listen to people on Reddit, just in general. The next step up from this is 1/35 kits, but unfortunately, just like these 1/48 kits, most of those models out there are just military vehicles and not actual cars. So if I want to use the cars from the actual movies, specifically I wanted to start with the early 1970s Ford Falcon, which, interestingly enough, was chosen for the original Mad Max movie because it was used as Australian police interceptors at the time, and has been used in many forms throughout the entire movie franchise. I'm gonna have to move up to 1/25th scale. Now this 1969 Ford Falcon kit isn't an exact match to the Mad Max Interceptor, but its silhouette is pretty damn close. And I'm sure it's bigger than the Warhammer scale, but it's gonna have to work. So I just need to put myself into the mind of an actual orc or a war boy in the Mad Max world and chop this sucker up and make it work to fit my needs. And with a little luck, we'll keep enough of the visual identity of this car so it fits right into that Mad Max world. I've long been an advocate for a cordless Dremel for our miniature hobby, and it is a godsend in this project. I can take the entire body of this kit and cut it up into each of the panels, the doors, the hood, the trunk, and the hood. 2 hoods. Boys in the hood. War boys in the hood. I really don't know what I'm doing here, if I'm honest with you, other than I'm hoping that I can use my orc vehicle frame as a reference for scale, and then cut this Frankenstein frame down to the right size so it fits over it and looks like it belongs. You know, I've never been the kind of guy that was just handy with cars and could fix and repair and rebuild old cars, and I'm kind of jealous of people that are able to do that. Now, I know it's different than what we're doing here today, but I do kind of feel like a manly man that can fix cars while I'm breaking this thing down, and it's only a $20 model kit, so if I screw it up, I'm not like destroying a late 60s Camaro or anything. Now, because model car kits are also plastic, that means we can use sprue glue and plastic cement to create permanent bonds between any of the plastic bits that we're using today, both from the hacked up car parts as well as directly welding them to the Warhammer plastic. This meant that my building process could be focused on getting the scale correctly, making sure everything was lining up to feel like a real car, instead of worrying about how I fit part A and part B together and covering everything in glue and getting my fingers stuck together and losing my fingerprints in the super glue process. Now, the official Snaz Wagon kit has an amazing driver with his head out the window and another guy on the back chucking a Molotov cocktail, and I really, really want to keep these guys as is. Their poses are dynamic. They have this shirtless vibe that I can paint up to really feel like a true war boy, so I don't need to do much work for them. I just need to make sure that what we build around them really allows them to stay true to their pose and make them a center of attention. So yeah, building around them and making a cool looking car is my North Star for this project. I just want them in more of a badass ride that feels like a real car. I did find some steps were more time consuming though in this process than I had planned. For example, when I hacked down the front hood and fenders so they fit just right for this scale, I had a hard time actually getting them to sit appropriately on the frame of the car. So like the wheel wells didn't line up exactly right, or it felt like it was like floating or too low or too high. And that kind of took me some time to figure out how to make it attach. I ended up using a spare piece of plastic card kind of as a wedge and a support point, ensuring the wheel wells were aligned properly. And then I wedged some green stuff underneath the hood of the body so it wasn't free floating and is really firmly attached. And little issues like this kept arising, but I didn't look at them as negatives. I thought that they were like fun little puzzles that this project was asking for me to solve, and there was no right or wrong answer to go about doing so. And this is not something I've done much of in my kit bashing career before, but it was really, really enjoyable. When that hood was on and I secured the car frame around it with some supports running through the hood, it was one of many small victories in the project that felt so damn rewarding. And once the front half of the vehicle was all built and attached, it felt like I was going to be able to just replicate that same process on the back half of the model, and I would be as good as done. I was very wrong. You see, what I didn't realize was that in order to make this thing feel like an actual Ford Falcon, it needed to keep similar dimensions to the actual car. If I just slapped on the back, it would seem way too compact and not like the true width and length dimensions of the actual car. It would feel more like a clown car, which is not a bad thing, but not what I'm going for in this build. So I had to cut apart the entire rear axle and undercarriage and pushed everything back about an inch. I used some beefy 3D printed tires here as I wanted the rear wheels to be slightly bigger than the front ones, but not comically so. I think I've never before in my life been more thankful for the build instructions and Games Workshop kits than when I did this project. Not having any instructions to go on or know what should go where or how it should look can be a little bit frustrating and stressful, but in those moments, what I do is take a step back and just start putting on some fun details on the car to make it feel like I was making progress and it was getting closer to what I was actually trying to achieve. This gave me the feel-good moments, like when I put the steel panel with rivets on it over the hood where I had cut too big of a hole. It just felt like it was meant to be there. I also went through and cut away more of the fenders so they didn't feel so big and overlapping the interesting details on the frame, as well as added some other fun scrap. Another good time to work on any fun details is when you're waiting for glue or putty to harden so you don't screw up what you've just glued together. I don't have patience to wait, so I just have to keep myself busy with other stuff. It's an opportune time to look around the model for things to fix, tweak, or where to add more bits to bulk up areas. That's why it's so important to keep a healthy bits box around of different things from different kits that you've never thought of using in an interesting way. For example, here I use different gun barrels as exhaust pipes to run all around the car to feel like it was pushing out more PSI, NOS fueled go fast juice. Sorry, I got away from myself a little bit there. By the time I got that extra stuff on, the glue and putty was cured and I could put the rear wheels on. I purposely have them stuck out a bit farther from the panels than the front wheels because I want that rear end to be bulked up to feel more like a muscle car. And with our rear end on and the second orc hanging off the back, I think we are done with the hardest parts of the kit, but we are not done with the funnest parts, and that is to really pull this together with all the fun details to make it feel like it fits both for orcs and the Mad Max world. Today's video was brought to us by Milanote. Now I'm going to be honest with you, I never used to write down anything for my miniature painting projects. Color schemes, collections of inspirational photos, step-by-step processes for each step of the model. I just never thought it was worth the time. I was so wrong. A year or so ago, I tried out Milanote and it feels like it was designed just for us. It's got tons of pre-made templates. My favorite are the vision boards because I can quickly start by dropping in photos, writing quick notes and steps to my painting recipes, and even create color swatches with the exact paints I use to create compelling color schemes for my models. And Milanote doesn't take away from my hobby time, it maximizes it. So whether I'm at my hobby desk or away from it, I can always work on something on my project. And if I'm ever stuck creatively, it makes me jumpstart that process so I never get bogged down in painting projects. I I've used it for whole army projects, Golden Demon projects, and it's been incredibly helpful for this Mad Max Orc project. There are amazing resources and documentation of the vehicles, costumes, and art direction for Mad Max Fury Road. So this allows me to compile them just where I want them so I can use them to make this project better than it would be otherwise. It's also a great online shareable resource so you can swap painting schemes with your friends. Heck, I've put all of my boards public out there so you can check out my paint schemes and how I've gone through each of my projects for free. And speaking of free, as a Ninja viewer, you can get your own Milanote account for free, no strings attached. Just check out the link down in the video description below. So whether it's for work, for other hobbies, or for miniature painting and gaming, make sure you try it out. You're going to be glad that you did. I love having some metal mesh of different sizes in my kit bashing kit. It's so versatile and really fits in well to cover some odd gaps that you find in the car. It just feels like it would live there. I did have a hell of a time actually getting it to glue down for some reason. I don't know why. So in those moments, that's when you use That's when you use UV resin and a black light flashlight to make sure that that bit isn't going to go anywhere. And this stuff is just great to have in the kit at all times because you never knew when something is not going to cooperate and you just force it with chemicals. I also 3D printed a bunch of different size rivets and spikes because they seemed like they really fit in this build. And yes, you could carve these yourself from plastic card or old bits of Warhammer sprue, but because I didn't know exactly what I needed or what size or how many, I just printed a bunch and started gluing them on. Whenever I'm gluing down teeny tiny bits onto my model, it's always good to have a little pair of tweezers. I just dipped out a puddle of glue onto a piece of plastic card, dipped in the bit and put it on, and before it cured, kind of pushed it in place and then let it dry. That was a little bit of throw up. Now this really needs to sell as Mad Max. There's a very important detail that I cannot forget, and those are the boomstick things, kind of these like makeshift javelins that the war boys use that they throw at other vehicles and they blow up. We got to make those. Yeah, we're gonna. And I looked at different bits in my kit that looked like they'd be some kind of an explosive charge that would be on the end of a spear. But then I rewatched the scenes in the movie where they have these, and I was shocked to realize that they're actually just spray paint cans on the ends of a stick. So I guess like when the tip hits and it pushes in, that creates bomb. I don't know how that works, but it's pretty awesome. So I looked through my bits kit and I realized I had some 3D printed mortar shells that are about the correct size. So I just cut off the rounded tops and I glued that cylinder shape onto the polystyrene rods. I purposely did not cut all of the rods to the same length, and I did not hang them all from the same parallel angle off the back of the car. Because we create this interesting kind of chaotic silhouette, that's what the feel of the War Boys vehicles look like. So if we want this to look like that, we need to have that chaos in length and placement of spray can spears. You know, just now, I'm realizing that I probably should have put some scraps of cloth or chain flapping in the wind on the tips of each of these spears. They have those in the movie. I don't know why I didn't think of that, because that way we can have them flowing straight back and feel like the wind is going through these little strips of cloth. That'll give us the feel that the vehicle is driving fast. Note to self, go back and do that part before I start painting. And our final little detail is to add a little grot Mad Max on the front bumper, because that was the main reason why I thought this kit was the coolest of the car kits. It has Lil Grot Max. I mean, come on. Who doesn't want that? I know I want that. He's only wearing Lil Grot tighty whities. So the vehicle is complete, but our work is not done, because we need this vehicle to feel like it is going with speed. And that means we need to make a creative base that really sells that impression to the viewer. That means no flat, boring, sand-ass base. So let's do a little mini tutorial on the 4 steps that I use anytime I want to create a dramatic base for my figure. And this would hold true whether you're doing a single model, a massive monster, or an entire army. Step number 1 is to start big. We're always going to work from big to small in the pieces of things we're putting on our base. For this one, it means I'm using my big pieces of cork to lay out where this vehicle is going to sit and what angles and interesting drama we're going to have on it. I envision this thing hauling ass over rocky desert terrain, so I don't want it to be flat. I have the rear driver's side wheel up really high, so we have our singular most dramatic point. From there, I place 2 thinner pieces of bark for the passenger side. This way we get a tilt to the side, but both of those wheels will be firmly attached to the base there. For the front driver's side wheel, I purposely have that up and off the ground with no attachment. This floating wheel will feel like it is flying over this terrain, and that part of the car hasn't yet touched the ground. Step 2 is to fill in with smaller pieces of bark and 3D printed sandstone terrain so we don't have just 4 giant rocks on a flat base. From here, we can place the car back on and find some places to add some fun rocky details. I decided to have some fun rock formations leaning off the rear of the base, pinning them to the bark with paper clips. Again, this goes back to the feel that we're trying to have with this base, speed and chaos. And this thing flying over the environment would cause all sorts of havoc, including these rock formations toppling over as it passes by. Step 3 is to fill in the gaps, again reinforcing the natural feel of an environment, and I'll use milliput for that. Keeping some jagged, exposed rock is really important, but we also need to balance that out with smooth, gradual changes of elevation with this putty. If we think about it from a natural environment perspective, wind would be sandblasting these rocks, creating dunes, creating slopes of sand and rock over generations. And we're just trying to recreate that on this base. The best part about this is there's no right or wrong approach on what areas to keep exposed with rock and which areas to smooth over. As long as you have a balance of each, it's gonna look good. And then the final step is to add any fun ground cover you want to, like some cool little cactuses, some sagebrush, some other scrub brush, and then we just slather the whole thing with texture paste. Desert sand texture paste, to be exact, for this one. Again, we're not covering our exposed rock parts with this texture paste. We are just covering the smooth areas and the areas where sand would collect in this environment. And then once I take that completed base and I reattach my car in just the right position, this scene really comes to life. And it is now more than just the sum of its parts. I don't know, I just think this thing is so cool, and it really gets me excited to have an army where this is what the things look like. You know, I stupidly thought that this video I'd be able to do an entire kit bash, do the entire base build, and then paint this entire vehicle. I greatly underestimated how much time it would take to properly put together a kit bash of a model car and a Warhammer kit, but you know what? The time that I spent was worth it, and I had a load of fun. And even more importantly, I do not want to rush the painting of this. But don't worry, that video is going to come because we're going to take our time and do a real thorough investigation of painting vehicles with this as our subject. Also, creating this build got me looking at other crazy builds for this army. I think I have an idea for the biggest, wildest Warhammer project I've ever done. But that would mean that you guys would like to see it. So please let me know. Make sure you're subscribed. Like this video so you know you like these Mad Max videos and you want them to continue. And we may come back in the very near future with something so massive, I have no idea how it will be accomplished. Probably dumb of me to put that out into the universe. A massive thank you to those of you that support me and allow videos like this to happen, for builds like this to happen, for me to spend some money on all these kits to make sure we can try something really cool. Whether it's subscribing to the channel, whether it's using my links down below to all the hobby goodies that I use with the affiliate links, you can oftentimes get those as a discount. That supports me. Picking up a Ninjon shirt down in my website, that would be awesome. Or most of all, those crazy SOBs that join me over on the Ninjon Patreon. We may not be stable, we may be the epitome of chaos, we may light some things on fire, but damn it, we have a good time at the Ninjon Patreon. Now don't worry, I'm going to be back next week with another fun video, and I hope to see you there. Just make sure that sometime between now and then, you find time in your day to slay the gray.